to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that it's America, and we're willing to die to protect it. Every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian, and Coast Guardsman, each of us commits our very life to protect and defend that document, regardless of personal price.
This is General Mark Milley, the outgoing chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the nation's highest-ranking military official, during a ceremony honoring his departure from the role. And it doesn't take a whole lot of brain power to figure out who he's referring to here. And I would presume that this statement comes at least in part in response to Donald Trump's decision to publicly attack General Milley, likely owed to the fact that he's a witness in the D.C. case against him. Trump had taken to Truth Social, writing, "Mark Milley, who had led perhaps the most embarrassing moment in American history with his grossly incompetent implementation of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, costing many lives, leaving behind hundreds of American citizens, and handing over billions of dollars of the finest military equipment ever made, will be leaving the military next week. This will be a time for all citizens of the USA to celebrate. This guy turned out to be a woke train wreck who, if the fake news reporting is correct, was actually dealing with China to give them a heads up on the thinking of the President of the United States. This is an act so egregious that, in times gone by, the punishment would have been death. A war between China and the United States could have been the result of this treasonous act to be continued." So you've got the current frontrunner for the Republican nomination for president threatening death against the nation's top military general who he appointed to the role, all because he wants to intimidate him into not testifying against him in Trump's upcoming D.C. trial. And of course, because this is Trump we're talking about here, that move will likely only have the opposite effect. Here's Glenn Kirshner during a recent episode of The Legal Breakdown discussing the legal ramifications for Trump due to this threat.
Yeah, so it feels like with this latest intimidation of a witness, putting out the call to his supporters, just like he did on January 6th, General Milley committed treason. You know what that means, right? This is not a thinly veiled threat. This is a direct, dangerous threat against General Milley. And so the gag order that was requested by Jack Smith was a pretty narrowly tailored prohibition of Donald Trump's speech and his posts, prohibiting him from harassing, intimidating, threatening, endangering witnesses, judges, prosecutors, jurors, or any of their family members, and also prohibiting him from saying things that were designed to poison the jury pool. Now, that request, those restrictions have not yet been imposed by Judge Tanya Chutkan, who's the presiding judge over Trump's J6 trial in D.C., and Donald Trump's lawyers just filed their reply pushing back. So this litigation is still ongoing. But remember, when Donald Trump was arraigned in federal court in Washington, D.C., I was there at the time. The judge at that point, the magistrate judge, admonished him not to say or do anything that could be perceived as threatening or harassing witnesses. So in my view, he has clearly already violated prior admonitions by the court, but now they're being formalized and will get hopefully some kind of a narrowly tailored limitation on Donald Trump's speech and posts. But it really does feel like with this threat against Milley, he has already violated prior court orders. So the only thing left to do, Brian, is issue what's called a show cause order, which is when a judge orders a defendant to appear and show cause as to why he shouldn't be revoked on pretrial release and detained pending trial for harassing, threatening, and intimidating witnesses.
In other words, not only will Judge Chutkan very likely grant Jack Smith's request for a gag order, but there's already a justification for pretrial detention. Remember, one of the terms of Trump's release from the beginning was that he wouldn't threaten or intimidate witnesses, which clearly floating the idea of death for Mark Milley did. So now, if the DOJ or Judge Chutkan was serious about protecting the integrity of the trial or the integrity of the jury pool, they would force Trump to stand before the court and make his case as to why he shouldn't be jailed pending trial. Whether that actually happens remains to be seen, but the rationale for such a move is clearly already there. Although I should note that if Trump's goal here was to intimidate Milley into not testifying against him, not speaking out against him, that doesn't exactly seem to be working out in Trump's favor. Given the tone of Milley's speech in the initial clip of this video, given him using his platform to call out wannabe dictators, a list that can be reduced to but a single person in this country, it seems that Milley is nothing if not emboldened by Trump's threats. Trump's goal may have been to shut Milley up, but in effect, all he managed to do was make absolutely sure that Milley's voice would be heard. And the general is using that platform to the most of his ability right this very moment. And by the way, it's not just the legal ramifications at play here. There's also the moral argument against how Trump has opted to treat not just General Milley, but the military more broadly. Here's Pete Buttigieg during an upcoming interview laying that point out exactly.
Well, it really was an attack on the entire military. And, look, this is not somebody who has ever shown a huge amount of respect for the military, whether it's going back to when it was his turn to serve and he invented a disability in order to get out of serving, lets probably some working class kid go in his place, or ever since. It doesn't have a lot of respect for war heroes, for generals, for disabled veterans. And I got to tell you, I'm not obviously in national security most of the time, but there have been occasions because of the work we do in transportation that I've found myself in a meeting or a situation with General Milley. Talk about a soldier's soldier, somebody who is as matter of fact, as serious, as insightful, and as committed as anybody you will ever meet to keeping Americans safe and to doing right by the service members who were under his command. It's just the contrast couldn't be more stark. And I'm really thankful for the general's service. And one principle we used to hold pretty sacred in this country is that whatever your policy arguments are, you wouldn't take it out on the military. But this goes way above and beyond that. This isn't just a policy disagreement. This is just flat out disrespect and even intimations of political violence directed at somebody who has put his life on the line and showing huge disrespect for the military in which he serves.
And again, that interview with Pete Buttigieg will be released this weekend, so to check that full video out once it's released, make sure to subscribe to this channel. It really is amazing how the Republicans can continue to parade themselves around as the party of the military when their God King, the guy who they would follow to the ends of the earth, will openly attack and manipulate and exploit our military the moment it becomes politically convenient for him. What Trump has effectively done these last few years, though, is expose just how phony the Republican Party's branding actually is. Just like they claim to be the party of the military, only to line up behind a guy who attacks the military without reservation, they also claim to be the party of family values, while pledging allegiance to a guy who is a serial cheater and adulterer. They claim to be the party of states' rights, and yet what did they do the moment that Roe was overturned? They started advocating for a nationwide abortion ban. They claim to be the party of the police, and yet hardly a single Republican was willing to condemn those insurrectionists who got caught bludgeoning police officers on January 6th. On issue after issue after issue, Republicans may be content to lean on their branding, especially their branding from the past, but it doesn't comport in the slightest with reality. And the good news is that Americans are finally starting to recognize that, not least of whom is General Milley. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.